And speaking of getting swept up, I want to finish on our what I think unless there's something else you want to cover, but my favorite news piece for the week about the sort of hilarious thing from a company called Lattice. I don't know if you saw it, but basically this company Lattice, which is an HR company, and that's what makes this I think hilarious, is that they announced that they were going to, in their HR system, start allowing for AI bots to be effectively created as, first class citizens, where they would actually have official employee records and they can be onboarded and trained and assigned goals and treated just like a human. And there's two parts of the story. The first is the unsurprising backlash. I mean, it was, I have to remember the time, but it was like days where it's just
Mhm.
like people just lit it up. And it's like, what the hell are you doing? And they backtracked as fast as you can imagine. But more than, I mean, what I almost find more fascinating beyond the backlash is like, why? What were they thinking? I don't for the life of me understand why you would even want to do that. But I don't know, maybe I missed something. So I don't know what your your take on that whole story.
So we've looked at AI workers. We talked about Cognition AI's Devin a few weeks ago, and we know that there are bots that are going to be doing human tasks, but giving them actual HR definition seems a little weird. Well, I think part of this goes back to the phrase human resources in the first place. I've never loved that phrase because I don't consider myself to be a resource as much as I agree with the human part, not so much the resource part, because we know what we do with our resources. Let me just put it that way. um, so I I think that this goes a little too far in trying to resource the skill rather than understand what a human needs to be successful within a workplace. And I think that's an important lesson. And although Lattice went too far in calling their AIs something that needs to be recorded in HR, I do think there's a little bit of truth in here for companies to be cautious of whether they are actually treating their employees as people or treating them as cogs,
The,
and
the, the
creating
other
the
side.
reporting records to match whether they are actually humans or not.
Well, funny you say that. So I think there's a few sides of this. I mean, I think in part it's the fault of people like I forgot the name of the company that released Devon, but that company and that announcements and Automation Anywhere has been beating this drum for years now about hiring the workers 5/9. I don't know if they still do this, but for a while their pricing was you were buying their AI agents, literally paying on a per agent basis, much like you would hire an employee. So there's a lot of companies have been trying to go down this road, and I think it's a fool's errand to try to treat a technology like this the same way you would treat an employee from any dimension, whether that's how I manage them, how I pay them, how I, any of that. At the end of the day, let's not lose sight of the fact that at least until we get an iRobot type robot that's going to literally act and behave like a human, this is just technology. It's fancy technology with fancy names, and it I have full on conversations with my AI assistants. I understand that it can feel that way sometimes, but it's still just a piece of technology. I have an off button, I turn it off, and I go about my life. And I think that any organization, to your point, that fails to recognize the inherent and unique value that a human brings to the equation and attempts to normalize that or make it, equivalencies, they're asking for trouble across every dimension. Not only like getting this backlash, but that, to your point, that really means they are failing to look at their people in the proper light that's going to generate the most benefit for both them and their employees. So I think there's just so much. I mean, I just sort of laughed when I read this article because it was like there is so much wrong about it. And it speaks to, I think, the challenges that we're going to continue to have in this space as people try to kind of find the way forward.
Yeah, and I think the flip side of that is also I worry that companies are overestimating uh, the proactiveness that AI can have towards tasks and learning. The AI, as we have it right now, is not proactive. It responds to what you're doing with the mediocre or average response that it gets from the world, the internet, which is fine. It's actually works pretty well for a whole bunch of things, but let's not mistake that for what a human does at the end of the day.
Yeah, no doubt. I use another one of my the AIs I use is called Pi by I forgot the company that got gutted by Microsoft, but and it introduced this proactive feature because it's predominantly lives on your phone, and so it has access to notification. And so it asked me one day if it wanted me to if I wanted it to like proactively engage with me. I said I thought that was great, and now it just bugs the crap out of me. It's like gives me stupid it's not at all. It's giving me generic, like you said, mediocre, generic, blah blah blahs that do absolutely nothing to add any value to my life. And so I think that may change. We've talked a lot about agents. I think that will change. I think when Apple rolls out an Apple Intelligence where it actually has contextual awareness of everything going on, that may start opening the door to this being more proactive. But even then, it's still not going to be human like. We are so far from that. So far. And so I think, the big lesson if you're a CIO or if you're an enterprise executive and looking at this is just don't do it. If anything, you need to be looking at this as all of this as a tool to make your human employees that much more powerful in what they're doing and productive and let them have more enjoyment with their work and let these bots, let the technology be technology, and don't try to mix the two together like that.
Charlie, thank you so much for pushing off the onset of Skynet, maybe another month with your warnings.
At least a couple.